Mr Armas versus Mr Floyd. Mr Floyd comes to us via a previous college basketball career, and they both debuted coming into this fight. For 3 rounds, Mr Floyd picked apart Mr Armas. Mr Armas was a little flat-footed, and Travis, he switched stances, he moved around, he was very mobile, and put the body shots on that kid. Coming out of the first round, Mr Armas was already beat up. But that did not deter Mr Armas. He continued to fight. He landed some good shots here and there in the fight, but Mr Floyd was just too mobile. He was just too flat-footed for Mr Floyd, and Mr Floyd got the 3rd round TKO stoppage on him. McAllister versus Wassey. Mr. Wassey is a debuter, and McAllister is one of our return fighter journeymen. He sometimes can get off some good shots. This was not one of his fights, Mr. McAllister. Mr. Wassey just stood back and allowed him to step in, and he just countered him at every chance. And then he just kind of pushed him back and just punched him when he wanted to. And he got 2 knockdowns on Mr. McAllister, and the fight was over. Welcome, Mr. Wassey. You guys to understand, coming in, when you have easy fights like this, it only gets tougher the more up in the rankings you go, so be careful. It feels good to get a debut win, but let me tell you, when you have not really been punched by your opponent, you'll find out later. I said in my pre-fight video that this picture was deceptive, and it really was, because I expected Mr. Reber to go in there and just get Mr. Mitchell out of there. If you're looking at their bodies, you can see the difference in stature and how big Mr. Reber was compared to Mr. Mitchell. But Mr. Mitchell put the pressure on him. He had Mr. Reber frustrated a little bit there in the fight. And then when Mr. Reber calmed down and started to place his punches and advance, he became victorious. But during that mix-up, Mr. Mitchell landed some pretty decent shots on Mr. Reber. I was surprised. I was really surprised. He has good reach. He did some body work on Mr. Reber, but it just was not enough. He just did not have the power he needed to slow Mr. Reber down or even stop him. So, 2nd round stoppage. Mr. Mitchell was done. His corner stopped the fight. And not reiterate enough to you guys, if you haven't really been punched, you will find out. Welcome to the main card. Mr. Alvarez versus Mr. Ridge. Mr. Alvarez debuted on this card. Mr. Ridge returns as a 1-0 fighter. And then I thought about it. Once they showed me who he fought the first time, I said to myself, this is going to be a test for Mr. Ridge. Yes, it is. And yes, it was. Absolutely. And did you see that picture of Mr. Alvarez looking like, who this fool? So these two dusted it up. In the first round, I give it to Mr. Ridge. He was able to get close enough to land his punches when he needed to in that first round. But also in that first round, Mr. Alvarez opened up a cut over top of Mr. Ridge's right eye. That began the default of this fight. Throughout the rest of the fight, Mr. Ridge was kind of on the back foot. He was trying to protect that eye. He could only get off shots every now and again because the range just became too much. In the 4th round, the fight was stopped by the doctor. Lenz versus Williams. This fight took exactly 1 minute. Mr. Lenz came in and immediately started a brawl. Mr. Williams was not having that. As soon as he was able to circle away from Mr. Lenz, he started to land that jab. He was able to use his range. He was able to open up his eye. That was the fight. Completely. Another doctor stoppage. The ass whooping was handed out. The weight battle. Mota versus Lurching. Yeah, Mr. Lurching came in with 45 fights under his belt. And Mr. Mota came in with 15, I believe. And I was wondering which one of them was going to survive this fight. And it ended up being Mr. Mota. He finished him quicker than than the last fight. Yeah, he took one good overhand right and put it on Mr. Lurching, and Mr. Lurching didn't want no more. He was done. He was good. As big as his ass was, he was good. Damn, told you, you ain't never been hit. You find out when you do. Heavyweight battle. 2 debutees, I believe, and these two look like they both rolled off the couch. This fight looked the way I thought it was going to look, and first round TKO goes to Mr. Costa because Mr. Sanchez could not take the pressure. He just could not take the pressure. Another heavyweight battle. Mr. Parker and Mr. Thompson. Yeah, this was a decent fight, and I called Mr. Thompson out because I said he looked the part, but would he fight the part? He absolutely did come in there and fight the part. He is somebody that should be fighting right around 205, but he came up and fought in the heavyweight. And I was wondering why, with those big punches he was laying on Mr. Parker, why he could not get him out of there, because he hasn't built up strength enough for the heavyweight yet. Yes, you might want to go test that power down to 205, mister. Yeah, your opponents were watching. They see the holes. It feels good when you get your first win, but if you do not close those holes, your next opponent will take advantage. Congratulations, Mr. Thompson. Let me just say, Rick Caruso took this fight on 2 days' notice. And I didn't know what to expect from Mr. Caruso going into this fight, even though I'm familiar with him as a boxer. I didn't know what to expect on 2 days' notice. But Rick showed up. He showed up. Rounds 1 and half of 2, he was able to put the pause on Mr. Claffy. And that was an adjustment period for Claffy because this is his first bare knuckle fight coming over from WWE. And once he was able to get himself settled into the fight, once he was able to find his range, once he was able to pick his shots, he took over the fight just like I told you he was in my pre-fight video. So with that being said, round 3, the fight got stopped by KO. Mr. Claffy came in and got himself, he had to work hard for it, but he got himself a KO over our guy, Rick Caruso. But thank you, Rick Caruso, for stepping in, and thank you for giving Mr. Claffy a good 1.5 rounds that you could, and I would like to see that maybe run back again when you have a full camp. I maybe would like to see that run back. Yes. Welcome to BKFC, Mr. Claffy. Yes, young man. He knows what it feels like to be hit, so when he gets hit the next time, he's going to be prepared. Trust and know he's going to be prepared. Congratulations to both gentlemen on being fight of the night. Jay Jackson versus Terry Janowski. OMG, I know some of y'all OGs didn't expect this fight to go the way it did. Oh my God, this was such a great fight. That being said, elevation. I always scream elevation. Jay came elevated. Oh my God, this kid has changed so much since his last fight. Like, he was so patient. He picked his shots. Mr. Janowski was patient. He picked some shots. These two went back and forth. It was almost hard to call who was winning the fight. I told you in the pre-fight video, Jay's fights are always close until they're not. And the punch that actually ended this fight was a sweeping backhand left. Yes. Watch the fight. You'll see it. Very, very subtle. But yeah, that was the last lick that Janowski took. He didn't want no more. He was over it. He was fucking over it. Had been knocked down twice. He just could not stop Jay from stepping in when he wanted to. Jay controlled this fight. Basically, the whole fight, like I said, Janowski got off some great punches, but he just was done. It was over. He couldn't take the pressure. I imagine was a big fight for both of them. Somebody just got catapulted. Mr. Jackson just got catapulted into a position. Trust me, when he comes back, you'll see. Mr. Janowski, Miss Nikki is still going to be checking for you, baby, because I know you a tough fighter, so I expect you to make a comeback off of this. Co-main event, Lang versus Mundle. So I left this fight being really disappointed with Mr. Lang, simply because I feel like he just fights right below his real level of fighting. I think his fight with Mike Perry was a great one. Yeah, I really do. I think it was a great one. But this kid is just fighting right below what his real potential really is. And in these pictures, you can see that. Man, Mr. Mundle was not able to hurt Julian. It's hard to hurt Julian, but Julian was able to hurt him in the 4th and 5th round. If he had let his hands go each and every round just a little bit like he did in the 4th and in the 5th, he would have won this fight. I don't know who was in his head, what got into his head. I know he's elevating. I know you're elevating, and it's a different look, but I need you to bang, baby. I need you to bang. I keep telling you, you're one of those fighters that even though they see and know what's coming, they can't stop it. They just can't stop it, baby. Go back and watch a fight. You will see. You will see in that 4th and 5th round. And every time you came forward before then, you were successful. And you put him on the back foot. He was the one that was leery. You should have been stepping in. Most of the punches you parried. Most of those punches he threw, you parried. He caught you a couple times, but for the most part, you parried. You spun. You ducked. You did what you had to. You just did not put in the offensive part of your fight. You would not come forward. You didn't come forward until the 4th and 5th round. And that's where you had your most success. But by that time, you had let him lay back so much that he had already won the fight. Unless you knocked him out in that 4th or that 5th round, you weren't never going to get that win, baby. So, bang, Julian. Please, just bang, baby, when you go in there. You have been a previous champion at another bare knuckle organization, and I need you to show me that again, please. And it's not that I have anything against Mr. Mundle, but there are certain ones of you fighters that I know what I've seen and I know what I should be getting when I see you fight, and I expect that. I'm going to hold you to that high caliber of fighting that drew me to be a fan of yours to begin with. So if I see you are not exerting that, and unless you have an illness or an injury and you make that known, then I'm going to be disappointed if I don't see you fight to your potential. So with that being said, congratulations to Mr. Mundle. Good luck in your impending fight with whoever it may be, whenever it may be. Good luck, baby. Your heavyweight champion, Arnold Boombaye Boogeyman Adams versus Dylan Bad Boy Kleckler for the heavyweight title at Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. Look at him. Two big dudes nobody would want to meet in the dark. So with that being said, this was a great heavyweight fight. Thank you both gentlemen for such a great, awesome fight. The 2 rounds that it went is awesome. That fight was great. Y'all know that Mr. Adams got knocked down as the reigning defending champion in the 1st round by Mr. Kleckler. But it was a punch that he more so ran into as Mr. Kleckler was just fishing it out there. So with that being said, upon getting up off of the canvas, Mr. Adams turned on. He turned on. He got that knockdown back in that 1st round. So at the end, when the bell rang at the end of the 1st round, they both had a knockdown on each other. Mr. Kleckler has some really sneaky hands. He's sneakier than I thought he would be. Yeah, and yes, but AJ found that spot. He found that soft spot like he always does. And I'm telling you, Mr. Kleckler did not want any more. When AJ opened up that eye and got that knockdown on him in the 1st round, you could clearly see that Mr. Kleckler had not signed up for this. Somebody told him something wrong, because when he got up off of that damn canvas, he was looking around. He was looking for Dave Feldman's ass, because he said, You told me this wasn't gonna happen. That's the look he had on his face. I promise you, he came back out in the second round because that cut was not bad enough for it to be stopped. And with that being said, he fired off a couple more shots on AJ, and AJ just took over the fight. And just that, a part of that you can see is the street in AJ, like where he come from, the shot, the punches, how he laid him out, just turned him over. It was just enough. And Mr. Kleckler, when he went down the second time, he was completely done. He was not getting up. You can clearly see that he was not getting up. He was beat up enough at that point for him. So with that being said, AJ got the second round knockout stoppage, I believe. Either TK or a knockout stoppage. And he retained that belt. He's back. He is back. And I seen Mr. I seen Frank Tate was sitting in the audience too. It wasn't like I wasn't expecting him to be there. So they have matched Mr. Tate up with Alan Belcher. He's another one that's getting ready to find out the hard way what it is with them. So with that being said, congratulations to our defending, reigning, undisputed heavyweight world bare knuckle fighting championship champion, Arnold AJ Boombaye Boogeyman Adams. So just let me say this to all my fighters. AJ told y'all he's been there before. He has been there before. He's taken a punch before. And Mr. Kleckler is a very prime example of what I say to you guys when you get those fast finishes in your first couple of fights and you don't really get hit. When you do get hit, oh my God, that changes the game for you. So with that being said, I hope that everybody was paying attention. I hope that everybody is in the mindset of elevating before they step back into that ring for their next fight. And if you haven't already, to my novice fans, please download the BKTV app and go check out these fights. Check them all out from day one up until now. And then some other stuff is coming up there. So yes, download the BKTV app. Go and watch every bare knuckle fight on that app. You will not be disappointed. You will not be disappointed.